All right, whenever you're ready.
I'm Kassie, and today I'm going to be talking about why SeaWorld's captivity of killer whales, also known as orcas, is dangerous. My 3 claims are going to be that it endangers the SeaWorld trainers, it prevents orcas from living up to their full potential, and it also misinforms the public. To give a little background information, SeaWorld is a marine theme park that has 3 locations in San Diego, Florida, and Texas. SeaWorld's main attraction is its Shamu show. Shamu was the name of the first orca brought to SeaWorld in San Diego in the 1960s. Shamu is now used as a stage name for adult orcas and performances around all the SeaWorld parks today. According to DolphinWorld.com, SeaWorld houses 45 killer whales in its locations today. First, I'd like to talk about how the captivity of orcas endangers the SeaWorld trainers. Aggressive manifestations toward trainers have included butting, biting, grabbing, dunking, and holding trainers at the bottom of the pool and preventing their escape. 4 total deaths and 106 recorded injuries have taken place in SeaWorld facilities today. According to Tim Zimmerman's article in Outside Magazine, the most recent death happened in February 2010, where an experienced trainer named Don Branshaw was drowned to death during a live performance in Orlando, Florida. My second claim is that holding the whales in captivity is detrimental to the lives of the whales. Stated in DolphinsWorld.com, in the wild, females on average live 50 years and males on average live 20 years. Of almost 200 whales held in captivity since the 1960s, 75% have lived no more than 10 years, and fewer than 20 have lived between 15 to 20 years. All in all, only 2 survived anything close to their normal lifespan. There are many reasons why whales are becoming unhealthy and dying at such young ages. A major contribution is the fact that they're placed into a tank and rather than their natural habitat in the ocean. At 26 feet long and weighing about 6 tons, which is like 12,000 pounds, living in a tank creates a lot of stress. According to marine biologist Brad Hansen, an estimated 60 to 90% of killer whales in captivity suffer from dorsal fin collapse because they can no longer swim long distances, causing their fins to weaken. In addition, the water in these tanks is filtered and chlorinated, which is unnatural for the orcas and causes illnesses. Lastly, researchers believe that the lack of mental stimulation causes the whales to have high stress levels, aggression, and mental illnesses. Whales in the wild are used to socializing with their pod, which is their family members, and they're used to hunting and playing games and traveling with each other. Instead, they're separated from their pod and put into a tank with other orcas that are not members of their family and forced to train for entertainment. All in all, these facts contribute to why orcas are not living up to their full potential. The last problem I'd like to address is that captivity of killer whales misinforms the public. People that go to SeaWorld are under the false impression that keeping the whales in captivity is more beneficial than their natural habitat. For example, the primary justification for the public display of the orcas is the educational benefits. According to Elizabeth Taylor's article in UT San Diego newspaper, the Shamu show significantly distort the public's understanding of the marine environment. The tricks and performances that are displayed do little to further the knowledge of the whales and their environment. In addition, the nature of the whales can't be illustrated when they're kept in captivity versus in their natural habitats. Also, people have the perception that captivity is more safe than the wild. However, whales evolved over millions of years to live in the ocean, which is their natural habitat. The way to solve hunting and pollution and the other issues that the whales in the wild face is not by putting them into artificial settings. Lastly, people are under the impression that captivity increases the advancement in scientific research. However, the amount spent on these programs is a mere fraction of the income generated by the facilities. Also, it seems nearly impossible to study the whales when their lifestyle and behavior is drastically different in captivity versus the wild. So yeah, overall, I'd say the captivity of orcas is dangerous.
Good morning. Having a good one.
Here, and this too. You only got one copy?
Oh, yeah.
You need to give me another copy. Give that to Stephanie in the front there.
Should I go do that right now?
No, you can get it for me later. All right, Kassie, let's start off with the proposition. You identify the proposition, but you state it as a question. Why is it dangerous for the killer whales? Your argument is that it is dangerous for the killer whales, and so you want to state it as a declarative sentence. Don't make it sound like it's a passive question, because then it makes it sound like it's an informative speech. Today I'm going to tell you why it's dangerous for these, instead of the argument, which is the declarative position that you're taking. I thought you did a good job identifying the proposition. There was a good layout of what the structure was going to be. You did preview that, so that helped quite a bit. Internally, the signpost on the first and the third points was pretty good. When you got to that second point, I thought it ran together a little bit. I mean, I could tell that there had been a change in the focus, but I think you need a little bit clearer signpost in the middle of the speech. The evidence that you cite, I'll tell you what, there's some evidence that is pretty well cited. You had a couple of statistics that you presented, and you gave us a source citation on it. Then there was some factual data that's presented. You don't really give us a source citation on it. I don't doubt that it's true, but you probably ought to give us a source on that. Like, for example, the number of whales in captivity or the number of deaths that have happened in the history of those parks. I know that that information came from someplace, but you don't really tell us where. There was also some general stuff about the dangers to the trainers. Other than the deaths that you point out, you mentioned some other risks, but I don't know if that's contained in a quote, how you've heard these kinds of things, where this information comes from. It just sounds like a general statement without much proof on it, so that needs to be developed a little bit more. I thought that you did a pretty good job developing the risks to the animals themselves and some of the problems that they face. Those explanations were also very clear. On the third point, it seems like a lot of the argument about whether or not there is an educational purpose here has to do with whether or not these are research facilities, and I'm not sure that that's the claim that SeaWorld or any of the other parks that have killer whales would say, that theirs is more along the function of a zoo, that they are presenting the animals to the public for the public's education, not for us to learn from the animals, how we're studying them and developing their, but rather for the public to see the animals and learn about them from that exposure. So I thought that your argument there seemed to be going after a different issue than the one that I think is controversial on that point. On your presentation, you need to speak up a little bit. You've got kind of a quiet voice, and you need to project a little bit more. And you're reading quite a bit. And I think if you look up and talk to us more, you're going to get greater confidence in yourself, and you're going to give greater credibility to the audience as they're listening to you. Your ethos will go up quite a bit. Thank you.